Good Thursday, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Conversation Daily News. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Well, we made it over the hump, and we're in the home stretch toward the weekend, and we've made it to the end of September as well. We, of course, have your news headlines coming up on this Thursday. We have the truth of the day with Mary Ellen Ciganovich, and in today's entertainment spotlight, being part of my conversation with best-selling author and producer Iris Bolling. Enjoy today's broadcast. For Conversation Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with their Thursday headlines. In national news, Biden digs in with fellow Democrats seeking deal on $3.5 trillion plan. Pressure mounting, but with signs of progress, President Joe Biden is hunkering down at the White House to try to strike a deal and win over two holdout Democratic senators whose support is needed for his potential historic $3.5 trillion government overhaul. With Republicans solidly opposed, and no Democratic vote to spare, Biden canceled a Wednesday trip to Chicago that was to focus on COVID-19 vaccinations so he could dig in for another day of intense negotiations with lawmakers ahead of crucial votes. The stakes are as high as ever as Biden and his party try to accomplish a giant legislative lift, promising a vast rewrite of the nation's balance sheet with an oh-so-slim majority in Congress. His idea is to essentially raise taxes on corporations and the wealthy and use that money to expand government health care, education, and other programs, an impact that would be felt in countless American lives. In one sign of trouble ahead, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suggested Wednesday that she might delay an expected vote on today related to a $1 trillion public works measure that centrist senators want but that progressives are threatening to defeat unless there's movement on Biden's broader package. It's a pressure point on the senators and other centrist lawmakers to strike an agreement with Biden. We take it one step at a time, Pelosi told reporters at the Capitol on Wednesday. I want it to pass, Pelosi said, of the $1 trillion infrastructure bill. So what we want to do is to pass tomorrow, and anything that strengthens the hand of a speaker helps us. At the same time, Congress is courting a more immediate crisis. Republicans refuse to approve routine legislation to keep the government funded past Thursday's fiscal year end and raise the national debt limit to avoid a dangerous default on borrowing. More votes were expected Wednesday and were likely to at least temporarily head off a catastrophe. All eyes are on Senators Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who say the price tag for Biden's plan is too big, but are publicly quiet about a number they can live with. In more national news, some fear boosters will hurt drive to reach the unvaccinated. The spread of COVID-19 vaccination requirements across the U.S. hasn't had the desired effect so far, with the number of Americans getting their first shots plunging in recent weeks. And some experts worry that the move to dispense boosters could just make matters worse. The fear is that the rollout of booster shots will lead some people to question the effectiveness of the vaccine in the first place. Many of my patients are already saying, if we need a third dose, what was the point? Said Dr. Jason Goldman, a physician in Coral Springs, Florida. The average daily count of Americans getting a first dose of vaccine has been falling for 6 weeks, plummeting more than 50% from about 480,000 in early August to under 230,000 by the middle of last week, according to the most recently available data to the Associated Press. In business news, Powell defends Fed's policy, says inflation may persist. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell on Wednesday defended the ultra-low interest rate policies he has pursued since the pandemic decimated the economy more than 18 months ago, but he acknowledged inflation has stayed higher for longer than he expected. At a panel sponsored by the European Central Bank, Powell was asked if the Fed is overdoing it with its policy of cutting its short-term interest rate to nearly zero and purchasing $120 billion a month in bonds to lower longer-term rates. The historical record is thick with examples of overdoing it, Powell responded. And pretty much in every cycle, we just tend to underestimate the damage and underestimate the need for a response. I think we've avoided that this time. In more business news, S&P 500 clings to a modest gain as other indexes end mixed. Stocks ended a wobbly day with mixed results on Wall Street Wednesday as the market regrouped following a sharp drop a day earlier. The S&P 500 held on to a gain of just 0.2% after trading higher for much of the day. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.3%, but the Nasdaq gave back 0.2%. And finally, in entertainment news, NBC dominates in premiere week for TV's broadcast networks. NBC opened the new television season with a dominant week against its rivals and it wasn't just football that was responsible. The network's Sunday Night Football franchise was by far last week's most watched primetime program, as it traditionally is each fall. But NBC said it was the first time it won television's fall premiere week in 20 years when only entertaining programs and not sports is taken into account. NBC's Wednesday night slate of Chicago dramas is potent, particularly for younger viewers. The network also touted its new series Ordinary Joe, which more than doubled its premiere night audience when delayed and digital viewing is taken into account. Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. It's now time for the Truth of the Day with Mary Ellen Ciganovich. Mary Ellen, take it away.
Hi, this is Mary Ellen with your Truth of the Day. Make a wish. Wishing inspires you to be playful. It also tells God exactly what you want to become or acquire. When you wish for something, your consciousness opens up to receiving. Wishing opens up all possibilities in your life. Whether your wishes come true or not is not important. To wish and express your heart's desires is what God needs. With every wish, you open an intention to create something new in your life. There is something innocent and magical about making a wish. It is a wonderful feeling when we can become a kid again, even just for a moment, while we live in the realm of adulthood. Today, or the next time you see a shooting star, give yourself permission to be a kid again. Make a wish. And remember, enjoy the day.
Iris Bolling is featured in today's Entertainment Spotlight. We're here on Conversations Daily News. For Conversations Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with the Entertainment Spotlight. Best-selling author Iris Bolling is celebrating her newest release called The Aftermath. She rejoined me recently on Conversations Live, the radio show, to talk about the success and her literary journey. Here's a bit of that conversation.
You are just a storyteller, period. You don't go into it. Now, this is my assessment as a reader and then also watching your career, trying to push a certain agenda, trying to get people to think a certain way. You just go into it for the storytelling. I want to ask you about that. I mean, how have you stayed so consistent in that? Because as you said, 30-plus books. How have you been able just to be able to tell the stories you want to tell?
I think for me, my stories are all character-driven. So the stories are being told from the character's point of view. It's being told the way that character is playing in my head. And yes, I'm not crazy, but yes, my characters do talk to me. Sometimes they wake me up at night and say, get up and write this piece of the story. You know? Yeah. So my stories are character driven. So when I sit down to write a book, that's actually those characters that's already given me parts of that story, and I've written it down somewhere. Somewhere like, for example, Nate Raines, The Aftermath. That story really started 4 or 5 years ago. When I wrote down something that Nate said to me in my mind, and I wrote it down, and then we turned up to have like several different books outlined from, whatever Nate was saying to me on that particular day. And so my stories are really generated from the characters that come to mind.
Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. We thank you all for tuning in to this edition of Conversations Daily News. We'll have you guys on tomorrow to wrap up this week. Until then, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Daily News today. Let's make today amazing. Take care.